So you're ready to book your Virgin Voyages cruise, but you aren't sure how to get the best deal and how to get free add-ons like onboard credit. Well, this video is going to talk all about that. I am getting ready to dispel every myth you may or may not have heard about Virgin Voyages, bar tab, and Sailor Loot, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to get it added to your reservation if it's possible. So be sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe, and let's get into this video. So welcome to the Jen Danielle Experience. If you're new here, I'm Jennifer and I am a cruise content creator and travel agent that specializes in Virgin Voyages cruises. So today we're going to talk about the difference between Sailor Loot and bar tab, because I know for me, when the first time I sailed, I had no idea what these terms meant, so I really missed out on some perks. So I don't want you guys to miss out, so I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about these two terms. It's also been brought to my attention that many people have to turn to Google, Reddit, and other places to understand how this works and what they should do. And I think that's really sad because, I mean, we have so many travel agents, starting with me, that are amazing and can fill you in on the details of this and tell you how to get it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, the first thing to know is Virgin Voyages has their own little cheeky terms for everything. So the two terms that we're going to be talking about today are Sailor Loot and bar tab. Now, Sailor Loot is going to be comparable to onboard credit. So if you have ever sailed with any other cruise line, it's going to be pretty much the exact same as what onboard credit is. Now, bar tab is a little bit more difficult to explain, and it's a little different than anything that other cruise lines offer. So it's going to take us a little bit longer to run through that. But let's go ahead and run through Sailor Loot. So the most important thing to know about Sailor Loot is that since it is comparable to onboard credit, it can only be used once you get on board. So I talked about it in a previous video, but if you didn't know, typically if you book things before you get on the ship, they're going to be a little bit cheaper. So like, for instance, if you wanted to book your excursions, or if you wanted to book classes that were on board or things like that, they're typically cheaper to book before you get on the ship. Now, the fact that Sailor Loot is comparable to onboard credit, you don't get access to it until you actually are physically on the ship, which means things could be a little bit more expensive once you get to it. Now, the next thing to know is, how do you get it? How do you get onboard credit or Sailor Loot? So there are only 4 ways to get it, and I'm going to go over each one so that there is no secret. The first way is you can purchase it. Now, as a travel advisor, I typically advise people against doing this because there's honestly no perk to doing it unless, you just don't want to have a bill at the end of your sailing. So you can, have a travel agent help you, or call into Virgin Voyages and say, I want to purchase Sailor Loot and put money on my account. There is no bonus for doing so, or really no good reason to do it. So that's why I advise against it. And the biggest thing to note is, if you don't use it at the end of your trip, it's use it or lose it. So that's why I don't like telling people about that option, because, it really makes no sense to do it. The next way to get Sailor Loot is by booking directly through Virgin Voyages website when they are running a special. That's the important part to note. Now, it is very rare that Virgin Voyages runs a special directly through the website that will give you Sailor Loot. The last time I saw them do something similar was July of this year. So they had like a 1-week summer special where they were giving some kind of additional bonus loot, or if they have like a sailing, like let's say the 7-day itineraries that weren't selling really well, or they have a lot of space available, they may do like a short promotion that will allow you to get Sailor Loot if you book on the website. So it's very far in between that you would get that offer directly through Virgin Voyages, but it is possible. The next way to get Sailor Loot is pretty popular, and that is to purchase a My Next Virgin Voyages voucher while you are on board. What this is essentially saying is that you are paying for a deposit to place on a future voyage that you're going to go on Virgin Voyage. So this is always offered to you as you're sailing. You'll start to get emails about it. You'll see it posted around the ship. There's also a desk that's at the very front near the roundabout that will help to push this promotion. And it's a good deal. Like I always tell my clients, I advise them to get it while they're on board because that's the only time you can get it. But basically, as of right now, the way it stands, and it's changed so many times that I have to give this caveat, but you would pay $150 and essentially they're going to give you this voucher. So it's like you've prepaid $150 on a deposit of a future voyage. They will also give you $150 off of your sailing, and then it's going to give you $150 in sailor loot. So it's like you get this bonus for pre-saying that you're going to come on Virgin Voyages. Now, the caveat to this, and this is what applies across the board when booking with Virgin Voyages, is typically these are only going to be for Sea Terrace cabins. Now, if you go the My Next Virgin Voyage route, you have to book a Sea Terrace cabin, but it is very difficult to get onboard credit or bar tab, which we'll talk about in a moment, if you are not booking a Sea Terrace cabin or above. Now, when you book a Sea Terrace cabin, there's also other parts to know, and that is that it needs to be not a lock it in rate, not a limited view cabin. It has to be at least a standard Sea Terrace or above. So that's one of the reasons why I really do advise for people to use a travel agent when dealing with Virgin Voyages, because there's so many little nuances and caveats that you have to know. And the worst thing you can do is, like I did, I purchased my Next Virgin Voyage when it was way more expensive than $150 the first time I sailed, and I didn't realize it had to be used on a Sea Terrace cabin. And I'm just gonna be honest, like I ain't have it like that then. And so I was like, I will never be going in a Sea Terrace cabin if I'm, having to pay the full price for it. It just didn't justify because I was sailing in solo insider. So just keep that in mind. It's best to talk with a travel agent. Talk with me if you feel comfortable, and I'd be happy to walk you through the whole process. Last but not least, and this is the best way, and it's to use a travel agent and to book early. And that is pretty much the key of, the secret to getting sailor loot or onboard credit is to use a travel agent, book early, and get a Sea Terrace. Like those are the three things that you can do. Essentially across the board, travel agents pretty much, depending on how much knowledge they have access to pretty much the same perks. So what it's going to come down to is the type of cabin that you get, the amount of time that you have booked in advance, and like I said, if Virgin has one of those promotions going. So that is going to be the answer to how you get the sailor loot. Now, let's move on to bar tab, because this concept is really interesting, and this is something that I really like that Virgin does. So if you have ever sailed with any other cruise line, they have so many rules with their drink packages because essentially they don't want you sharing them. Now, I guess that the cruise line would never know if you don't, just go up to the counter, get the drink for the person and hand it to them. But essentially they have created those packages and they try to make it as difficult as possible for you to share them. And that's not the case with the bar tab. I know, like with Carnival, Royal Caribbean, every other cruise line, if one person in your cabin purchases that drink package, then everybody in that cabin that's an adult has to purchase that drink package. And that can be really expensive because it's a set amount per day that you're essentially having to pay. I know for the cruise that I have that's upcoming, it's actually on sale and it's about $56 a day, but typically it's about $100 a day per person that you're going to have to pay for that drink package. And you have to pay that all in one lump sum before your cruise starts. Well, Virgin Voyages' answer to drinks and how they do everything is with the bar tab. Now, a bar tab is essentially, I like to think of it like a gift card. So it's like you're purchasing a gift card and saying, like, this is how much I'm going to drink on my cruise. Now, similar to the sailor loot, it is going to be use it or lose it. However, the good thing with the bar tab and the perk to purchasing it before you get on board is that they're going to give you a bonus. And so it's like you pay, for instance, $200 in drinks, and then they're going to give you a free $25 that can be applied towards other drinks. The great thing is that this can be shared. There are no rules. If you wanted to buy someone else a drink, that's fine. If you wanted to use it for bottles on board, and there are a couple other things that we're going to talk about that you could use it for, then that's fine. So I do like that they give you more of kind of like the adult option. And also, I'm not a huge drinker, so I don't feel I could justify, if I were on a 7-day cruise spending $700 on a drink package versus, being able to get that bar tab and then paying for drinks individually. So let me say that too, that is the other option. So you never have to get a drink package or a bar tab, depending on which cruise line you're on. You can buy your drinks individually, but, of course, at the end of the sailing, you could rack up a pretty big bill. So that's why I like the bar tab, because it loads onto your wristband. You purchase it before and your drink amount will pull from it. Now, as far as getting it with Virgin Voyages on a discount, I will say it's very rare now that they offer the bar tab. Like when they first rolled out, Virgin's only been around 4 years. When they first came out, it used to be very easy to get a bar tab. Like they used to hand them out like candy on Halloween. But now it's very few and far between. I did see last year for Black Friday, they did some promotion where if you booked, I think it was any kind of cabin, they were adding bar tab to it. So be on the lookout for Black Friday deals. I always tell you guys, holidays are good times to book because usually if a cruise line is going to offer any type of deal or really any company in the travel industry, they're going to throw it into that holiday time. So be on the lookout. That's what they did last year. I could potentially see them doing that again this year and kind of giving you like a bonus bar tab if you book during Black Friday. And a good thing to know is Black Friday usually starts the beginning of November, not, right after Thanksgiving. So we're pretty close up on it. So be on the lookout for that. Now let's talk about how Sailor Loot and bar tab kind of play into each other and the difference between the two of them. So now that I've explained what they are, the Sailor Loot can be used for anything once you get on board, and that anything does include drinks. However, the bar tab, the one that has bar in the name, can only be used for drinks. So these are two separate things. Sometimes you'll see in your account you have a bar tab allotment as well as a Sailor Loot allotment. And the way this works is, like, say for instance, you had $200 in bar tab. You drink up your $200 in bar tab, and now you want to order another drink. If you have Sailor Loot that is on your account, then the next drinks can pull from that Sailor Loot. So that is an option. However, it doesn't work vice versa with the bar tab. So if you, for instance, spin up your Sailor Loot and then you wanted to go and say buy something from the shops, they're not going to take that bar tab money and apply it towards what you buy at the store, because bar tab is only for drinks. Now, one of the cool things I'll say about the bar tab is, since Virgin Voyages food is all included with the exception of a couple different items that are upcharges, the good thing to know is that things like the sip and savory menu, I think that's what's called sip and, it's some type of additional menu. Like they'll offer something where you can get, like, for instance, a drink with each pairing of your meal. Those drinks can be pulled from the bar tab. So that's something good to keep in mind. And also, if you happen to get free bar tab and you're like, well, I don't drink alcohol, what am I going to do with this? You can use it for non-alcoholic drinks. There are a ton of non-alcoholic champagne options and drink options on board. You can also use it for specialty coffee as well as the pressed juices that are available on the ship. So you have some options if you're not a drinker and you get some bar tab. But if you aren't a serious drinker and you don't need something like, I'll say if you're not drinking like a ton of specialty coffee every day, I probably wouldn't purchase one, because keep in mind your original sodas like your Coke, Sprite, and all that, those are already included with the cost of the cruise. So you may not need $200 in bar tab if you're not a drinker. Now, one of the things to know about Sailor Loot is there are so many options of things that you can do with it once you get on board. And I think a lot of people don't know this. Like, Sailor Loot is very valuable. If you're someone who just wants to cut down on the prices of your drinks, like, go for it. It's great to be able to use it for that. But when I get Sailor Loot, I like to visit the shops. So some exciting things that you can do is you can visit High Street, which is the shopping area on the ship. You could go to like the Coach, Louis Vuitton, name brand areas and take the Sailor Loot off of that. Now, it would be nice if you got big figures of Sailor Loot. It used to be a way to get really, really huge amounts of Sailor Loot, but they have done away with that now. But, and even taking $100 off of, say, a bag that you've always been dreaming of having is great. You can go and purchase makeup. I know I like to buy perfume with mine. I love to get a scent to remind me of a particular sailing, especially when I'm going to like a new port I haven't been. I like to have a scent that reminds me of that trip and that experience. So you can buy a bottle of perfume with your Sailor Loot. You can also book excursions. So if there is an excursion that you want to do, as long as it's still available once you get on board, you can book it and it will pull from that Sailor Loot amount. Another exciting thing that you can do is you can book some of the classes that are on board. Like, for instance, the shot for shot class or the sushi making class. Those things can be pulled from that, as well as the bar crawl, the dinner in a show. Like, all of those things are things that would be considered extra charges that can be pulled from that Sailor Loot. Well, that's going to do it for my tips for bar tab and sailor loop. Hopefully this helped you to better understand the difference between the two of them. If you are interested in booking your Virgin cruise and me checking to see if I can get you any, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm going to list my email here. That's the best way to reach out to me. I would love to help you book your Virgin Voyages cruise. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and let me know what else you want to know about this cruise line. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.